We're now on part three of episode five of Smack Talk. We're talking right now about Daniel Bryan cashing in Money in the Bank, or at least attempting to cash in Money in the Bank. If you haven't seen SmackDown yet, I'm going to spoil something for you right now. Daniel Bryan cashes in Money in the Bank and successfully defeats Mark Henry, wins the World Heavyweight title, and of course, because Mark Henry is playing up an injury angle, he is ruled invalid to wrestle, and the whole Money in the Bank cash in is thrown out the window. Now, what that means is Daniel Bryan not only is not the world champion, but it also negates his cash in for the Money in the Bank. So we're basically back to what we were Monday night when everything was still, he hasn't cashed in at all. My first thought with this, when it comes to Daniel Bryan and Money in the Bank, when Daniel Bryan won the Money in the Bank briefcase, I was shocked. And then I became instantly convinced that he was going to be the first person to cash in and lose his match. I still am not wrong in that regard necessarily, but I'm really doubting myself now that Daniel Bryan actually had won this match. I'm starting to think that we have two options here. Of course, we have the option of he cashes in and loses, or he cashes in and wins. That's obvious. But I'm starting to think that the two options here are A, they did this as a means to tease us for the future for when Daniel Bryan does cash in and wins, and then it becomes that much better that he finally got to win it because he got screwed over before. Or B, this was the feel good moment. And when he cashes in the next time, he loses and that's it. And they gave us this feel good moment as kind of that uh, consolation prize for knowing that in the future they're not going to actually give him the world title. What do you think?
Um, Truthfully, I would say that this is to sort of test the waters a bit, kind of like what they did with Chris Jericho and the WWE title way back when, where he won that match against Triple H, and then he had him like give the title back. Otherwise, he was going to do something horrendous and had it stripped from the history books. You know, the crowd popped so big for it, and then when it was taken away, it made it, all so much more when he actually did win the title. It proved two things. It proved one, how Jericho could actually that he could actually be a main eventer, and two, it also proved that the WWE could sort of do something like that with the fans, and it pissed him off even more. Really, it made Triple H an even bigger heel by doing it. So by doing what they've done at the moment, they kind of teased it. They teased it to see if Daniel Bryan was that over that they could do that, especially after what they've done by burying the guy week in and week out. And two, it's added something fresh into the title picture because it was all about showing Henry, and we were talking about how stale that was getting. Now, by adding Daniel Bryan into the mix, it's made it all that more interesting. You know, especially we were talking about the Fatal Four Way as well. It's given the title a bit more prestige. So it's elevated Henry's status. It's made him into an even bigger heel than he already is by the fact that he held onto the title by the skin of his teeth. And three, you now have four established competitors vying for the chance for this belt. So we now get to see where it goes from here, where Daniel Bryan and Henry's feud goes from here. If it ends with this cage match, or if it actually creates the reign of Bryan, which I doubt. I don't think he's even going to get a shot at that belt until WrestleMania. I just think they're doing this as a way to appease the Daniel Bryan followers, so to speak.
I don't even think he's getting a shot at WrestleMania. To me, it makes no sense. You can't have The Rock and John Cena, The Undertaker having maybe his last match, and then one of the next highest up matches on the card, Daniel Bryan. I can't see them pushing him far enough to justify it in the next 3 months.
Well, I think it will be the same as what happened with Edge and Del Rio. They'll have the title match at the very beginning of the pay per view, so as the curtain jerker.
Possibility, true. Who do you think that he'll
Uh,
end up facing, though?
he'll probably end up facing Orton. I've got a funny feeling it's going to be Orton versus Bryan.
I could also
Um,
see a possible triple threat.
could be, depending if they allow that to happen, because it's all down to how they would establish a triple threat, or if um, you know the Royal Rumble winner challenges the champ, and Bryan, because he's already got his money in the bank for WrestleMania, challenges the champ as well at the same time, and then have it that way. The title won't even have to go to him. But I think if he doesn't win the belt, they're just missing the boat totally on it, because you can't have the same faces hold that championship. It needs to be a new dawn, a new era, so to speak. They tried allowing established talent to hold the world championships, and they overlooked guys like CM Punk, who was literally on his way out of the door if they didn't give him a chance. And they don't really want to make that mistake again. They have to start building up their new talent, because the core talent, they're aging. They're getting to the point where they're not going to be there forever. Randy Orton's not going to be there forever. John Cena's not going to be there forever. So they need to start, bringing these guys up. And Barrett's too young, in his tenure. He's too green to actually be giving a world title to. So who else are they going to rely on? He's an established worker. He's, a journeyman worker as well. He's worked from independent to independent. He's been the top face of Ring of Honor. And if they didn't think Ring of Honor was that good, they wouldn't have actually started pinching guys from there in the first place. So
I think with a guy like Bryan, though, his fan base is primarily the type that would bitch and complain if he cashed in and lost, because they would consider it WWE is just punishing this guy because he was from ROH. But they
but
would
that's true
also
though.
but they would
He's
also bitch and complain if he cashed in and won in a cheap fashion, and they would go, "Oh, well, it doesn't even look like he could win other than in a cheap way." I think the only way
Has
to
anyone
really,
moaned and complained about him actually cashing in and winning on SmackDown this week? Not many.
but then they also didn't have any time. All they did was go from the shock of it to, okay, well, it's invalid, it doesn't matter. I think if you want to win those fans over, the way that you kind of do it is you do that lose kind of method, and then maybe at the next pay per view he actually wins it legitimately, and then you have no reason to complain because you get that disappointment, but then you get that sheer excitement right back from him winning a
But having
legitimate
him
match.
but having him have the match at WrestleMania would still be legitimate. Especially if he was in a three-way dance with the Royal Rumble winner, because that way, he's not just beating one guy, he's beating two.
If he cashes in ahead of time, kind of like what Rob Van Dam did, then it rules that out. But I just can't see them doing what they did with the Mark Henry thing, where he just takes advantage of a fallen champion and does it that way. I don't think that's going to go over that well.
Yeah, it was exciting. I think that's why they didn't do it. They did it to sort of tease it and see what would happen and kind of swerve the fans in a way. But it made a very interesting SmackDown, and it's added someone new and credible to the title scene. So I haven't got an issue with it. I think it's something which is kind of cool. So, see where it goes from there.
Well, everybody, make sure that you put your comments on here because I'm very curious to see, considering most people disagree with me on the poll on my website, smarkoutmoment.com, naturally, of
Yeah, and those who like or unlike this video, leave a comment, say why. We want to know exactly what you guys are thinking. We just don't want a like and dislike and stuff like that just because you don't have an opinion. You need to tell us what you don't like about the show or what you like about the show,
Right, the more
and also
comments,
ask
the
some
better.
questions. Yeah, I'll ask questions as well because we're here to do things for you, and the show's done for the wrestling marks, the smarks, and and the general fan because we're echoing what you guys are probably saying to yourselves.
And we're going to end this with part 4. Now, part 4 is going to be very, very interesting. And I'm foreseeing a lot of different comments on this one and quite a bit of controversy between people arguing back and forth. So I'm looking forward to that. Part 4, we're going to talk about It Begins 2012. Stay tuned.